Hello there, this is Jim Bradley. I'm the author of Under the Castor Oil Tree, which is my blog. And I'm going to read to you some of the entries that I made this week and share them with you. And remind you that all the opinions in this blog are mine and mine alone. The first one is from Sunday, June 21st, Father's Day. Both Josh and Mimi called to wish me a happy one. Josh put his phone on speaker so my Bradley girl granddaughters could talk to me. I have trouble hearing on speakerphone. And when I told Bern, she went into a long explanation about how I need to get hearing aids. It's not a conversation I enjoy, and it went on too long. We're actually going next Friday and Saturday to see Mimi, Tim, and Eleanor. I'm not sure how long it will take to get there, and I have to get Sunday church and my sermon squared away before we go. I think about my father on this Father's Day. He was a hero in many ways, landing with the first wave on Omaha Beach on D-Day, fighting across France to Germany with General Patton, then afterwards caring for my mother and both their families and for me. But he always doubted himself, wondering if he were good enough or smart enough or worthy enough. He only finished 8th grade, and my mother had a master's degree, so he felt deficient there. And Mom's teaching made more money than he made working in his brother's store or in the little bar he ran after that and left because he had to pull a gun on some drunk man. Or his dry cleaning route that he did for years. Or his insurance business was the last job he had. But he did well in insurance, and I clearly remember the night my parents were doing their finances. I was out of high school and home from college, and my father said with astonishment, "I made more money than you this month, Cleo." It was the first time ever. I wish he hadn't doubted himself so much. He was a kind and loving dad and a protective one. I miss him today. Though my mother never met them, Dad knew Mimi and Josh as children. In fact, I brought him to live with us in New Haven when his dementia began. But he began to wander away and had to go to a home. He was an escape artist at the home. And once he somehow got himself stuck in the elevator. And they called me and said, "You better be here when we get him out." And so I went out there and the guy was working on it. The elevator doors opened and my father looked up at me and said, "Why did you put me in there?" I miss him today. Happy Father's Day to all of you and to those who think of your fathers today. The next one is, I've gotten my pages mixed up. Sorry, I'll figure it out. Next one is Random Thoughts. It was on Tuesday, June 23rd. Random Thoughts. Sitting on our back deck just now, I realized the house behind our back deck isn't visible through all the foliage between us. I can see lights at night, but in the daylight, they don't exist, and we don't exist to them. A little like this strange time we're living in. Others aren't quite there. The tip of my little finger on my left hand, the one that types A and Q and Z, bends away from my other fingers. A little arthritis, I suppose. I wear copper tone braces on my knees. An operation on the right one, arthritis in the left one again. Vern commented the other day that I still had on jeans in spite of the heat. I realized I was embarrassed about my knee coverings, which help enormously. I've worn shorts every day since she said that. To hell with embarrassment. I am almost immune to being surprised at the president's lies. But the one about testing being the problem and wanting the test to slow down did me in. All his spokespersons said he was kidding or tongue-in-cheek or being sarcastic. But then, this morning, leaving for Arizona, he told a reporter, "I don't kid." Yet 4 medical doctors involved in fighting the virus said to a House committee they hadn't been in touch with they hadn't been told to slow testing, and that more and more testing is the key to controlling the virus. They all said they hadn't talked to the president in a couple of weeks. Alas and alack. Going to see Tim and Mimi and Eleanor has me a bit anxious, if I admit it. This whole pandemic has me a bit anxious. I believe I should admit it and deal with it. I pray hard that the demonstrations will matter and that real change will come. But that is only happen if the Democrats win the Senate and the White House. Please vote in November. We have curtains over the door to my office and the TV room to keep the cool air from the 2 air conditioners in there. Bridget will sometimes go through the curtains, and sometimes she won't. She is such a damaged and timid little dog. We love her so much. Little by little, she comes back, but not all at once. This is called I Haven't Done This for a While. It's Wednesday, June 24th. The Mastery Foundation, for which I lead workshops in normal times, gave several years ago a plastic box full of hundreds of quotes. I sometimes share them in my blog to give you things to ponder and wonder about. Pondering and wondering, I think, defines who we are. So here we go. Just ponder and wonder. The first quote, never mistake a clear view for a short distance. That's from Paul Sartre. From Brendan Gill, not a shred of evidence exists in favor of the idea that life is serious. From Mark Twain, it ain't what you don't know that gets you in trouble. It's what you know for sure that just ain't so. Louisa May Alcott said, love is a great beautifier. Winston Churchill said, for myself, I am an optimist. It does not seem to be much use to be anything else. The Chinese philosopher Chuang Tzu said the fish trap exists because of the fish. Once you've gotten the fish, you can forget the trap. The rabbit snare exists to get the rabbit. Once you've gotten the rabbit, you can forget the snare. Words exist because of meaning. Once you've got the meaning, you can forget the words. Where can I find a man who has forgotten words so I can have a little word with him? W.H. Auden said, among those whom I like or admire, I can find no common denominator, but those I love I can. All the ones I love make me laugh. Albert Murray said, the truth may well be more difficult to relate than it is to find. Take a while and ponder those thoughts. Ponder them and wonder. This next reading is called Gasoline, and I did it on Thursday, June 25th. Gasoline. My Uncle Del, my father's brother, owned the Esso station in Anahuac, where I grew up. His full name was Adelbert, go figure. His three brothers were my dad, Virgil, Russell, and Sidney. Not names you will find at the top 100 lists these days. I used to work in Russell's H&S grocery store when I was a teenager, right next to the H&S dry goods store. Uncle Del's Esso, not Exxon, not in those days, was just across the road. The office of the Esso station was always full of men of both races, sitting around a revolving fan in the summer and a potbelly stove in the winter, gossiping, telling jokes, laughing about being together. I remember when the gas price went over $1. People whined and complained and threatened to go to Flake Martin's Gulf Station instead. Gasoline above $1 was a shock. Today I went to get gas at the Stop and Shop service station. I had a credit on my card of $1 a gallon. So I got to fill up for the first time in a month since I don't drive much. And I filled up for $1.03 a gallon. It made me think of Uncle Del. The Bradleys did not reproduce a lot. Del's daughter was an only child, as I was. Sid had a boy and a girl. Russell had no children. Their sister, who died while I was a child, had only 2 boys. I was the only child on my mother's side. Aunt Georgie had 2, Aunt Juanette had 4, and Uncle Graham had 8. 2 very different families in every way. Amazing. My next one is called The Trip and Visit, and I posted it just yesterday on Saturday. The Trip and Visit. We got back from visiting Mimi, Tim, and Eleanor in North Branch, New York. It's a house they bought last fall, long before the virus hit, and they've been there since New York City shut down, safe and isolated. North Branch is basically nowhere. They found the house because friends of theirs from Manhattan and Brooklyn owned the house next door. By next door, I mean 200 yards down a 2-lane highway with mountains on both sides. When we were getting close on our visit, Vern said, "This is West Virginia." Their backyard is literally a mountain. There is only a few feet between the back of their house and a steep hill, heavily wooded. They own a good deal of the mountain, but it's almost impossible to climb, and it's full of ticks. Eleanor had a bunch of tick bites recently since they've been there, and is on antibiotics for her latest bite. But it is a lovely 1890s house with strange details, like sliding barn doors inside to shut some of the doors in the house. Mimi and Tim are working mostly from home. Tim works for LinkedIn and probably would never have to go back to his office in the Empire State Building. Mimi works for an architectural magazine and has to go to New York City for a day or so every week. She said it's a 2 or 4 hour drive, depending on the traffic. Eleanor, who will be 4 in August, is so smart and funny and entertaining and happy. That's the last word that gives me joy to fill my heart. She is so happy. Tim and Mimi, who are bright and wondrous themselves, are raising a happy girl. God bless them. I was watching the news on MSNBC on Friday early evening. Eleanor came to ask me why. I told her I wanted to know what was happening. It was important to me. She said the news was boring. We had a 20-minute conversation about news being important and boring. She asked so many questions about Ari Melbourne and Joy Reid. Amazing for not yet 4 years old. It took us longer to go than to get back. Why is GPS not consistent? Going, we got off 4 lanes about 30 miles from their house and followed Route 52 through White Sulphur Springs. 2 other reasons it felt like West Virginia. Route 52 is a main highway in West Virginia, and White Sulphur Springs is the exclusive resort that Franklin Roosevelt made famous. Coming back, we got on 17E, a 4-lane highway, 5 miles from their house that went all the way to I-84, which brought us to Cheshire in just over 2 hours. It rained every mile of the trip. The only time it drizzled, we stopped at a rest stop. Other times it rained so hard that I would have pulled over if I could have seen the shoulder. A great time in spite of all that. We love them so. And this final entry was also made yesterday. 2 other things. 2 other things from my long conversation with Eleanor about the news. One of Ari's guests was a black rapper with a shirt that said, "Kids Rule." Eleanor read kids, not bad for 4, and asked what the other word was. When I told her, she said she didn't belong in that. I asked her why she thought that. And she replied, "I'm white and he's black. He means black kids." I told her, no, the shirt means all kids. Black, white, Hispanic, Asian, Middle Eastern, African. Kids are the future. Kids rule. She thought about that for a long time and finally said softly, "Okay." Then Joy Reid had on 3 congressional black members on her panel, 2 women and a man. And Eleanor asked, "Are there 3 women and only 1 man?" And I told her honestly, because we need to listen to women. Men have messed things up. Women will make things right. She thought for a while and said, "I like that." Lordy, Lordy, what a child. This is Jim Bradley, reading from my blog, Under the Castro Oil Tree, all of which is my opinion and no one else's. And it's been wonderful being with you. and I hope to see you soon. Be well and stay well.